All right, we're going to go ahead and call our finance meeting to order.
Thank you.
Councilman London, are you present?
I'm present.
All right, Councilwoman Cuellar? Councilman Box? And then Spivey, myself, I'm here. Aaron Sims is absent or delayed, and Mayor Stewart has informed us that he'll be a little delayed as well. Councilman London, we know that you need to leave at 6, so
Yes, sir.
so we'll pause there right about that time so that you
We'll
can
try to,
you can
because we
exit.
have a lot to cover. So
I understand.
there's nothing that says that we have to
It
pause.
doesn't matter. It's Councilman
Okay.
Cuellar. Councilman Cuellar.
He is the president of the
Yeah,
council.
Councilman Cuellar.
Right,
You're
and
out
I'm
of-
just
you're out of
saying
order.
that-
You're out of order.
Based on the law, there's nothing that says that we have to pause.
Councilman Cuellar.
I
He's just
mean,
gonna,
I'm
he's just gonna
pausing out of
pause.
courtesy.
Yes,
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
pausing out of courtesy so that
So
the
I can
gentleman
walk
can
out.
collect his stuff and make an exit. Yes.
Thank you, Mr.
Plus, I
President.
also feel that it's just important to acknowledge that so that anybody who's watching might wonder why Councilman
Yes.
London is exiting the building. It's because he had a prior commitment.
Yeah.
That being said, this has always been an open forum when we've had these conversations. I would like it to be an open forum. I want to get away from talking over people. So when that person is speaking, let's go ahead and yield to that. I want to respect that as much as we can. But if we start kind of going down rabbit holes and things of that nature, I might try to reel it back in a little bit. So don't be surprised if I interject from time to time. I want to keep this just cordial, and I'm looking for targeted questions. That's what I'm looking for tonight, is targeted questions. Now, the mayor often is the one who would be the answer for those questions and everything. Lou obviously worked with Mayor through this process, so I'm sure there's some things that she will know. If it's over her head, then she's gonna have to circle back around to us until the mayor can join us. Okay? That being said, let's pick the conversation back up where it was. What was the last point that was being made?
Councilman London and I were discussing, and Councilman McQuailer interjected, that based on one citizen here present at the meeting
Sure.
asking where can we obtain copies of the proposed budgets, or where can a citizen get that? The discussion came, this is just an option, discussion came that we've never done it in the past, but then I raised the issue, well, okay, that's fine, but is there some valid reason why we could not do it? And if there is, then definitely I'd be on board with that. We know numbers are gonna change, even the numbers of the budget that we finally approve will change, because they're not an actual budget, they're just projections. So, in my mind, and once again, if I'm just a rookie coach, so help me out there, but in my mind, if we're wanting the citizens involved, should we not be totally out there with them on what those projections are? And I get it that at times we have to have an executive session for things, and if this kind of falls under that, then, you know, you guys let me know. I'm just new and asking, just as I would if I were sitting in on a business meeting, you know, for a company.
Sure.
That's where we were.
And to note, Councilman Sims has joined us. And that being said, to kind of address that, I'm fine with it. Doesn't bother me. It's just paper expense. I mean, at the end of the day,
Right.
once something hits our hands, it's unless it's an executive session or something legal or something like that we can't discuss. Generally speaking, once something hits our hands, it's public knowledge. Would you agree with that, Lou? You might not be on.
Okay, so the budget is not finalized, so again, like Council Box said, but we're gonna go back and forth probably multiple times, so it would be good to all come to kind of a point of agreement to post that as a proposal, and then move from there. So that there are not multiple copies of a proposed budget, so that would be confusing to the public.
Fair enough.
If I could address that, I do understand that stance now, because, you know, some person may have printed in a budget, the first proposed budget, and then now we're on the third one because we still haven't finalized. So I could see that, but.
Every time we update, we would have to, if we start that, we would have to make those corrections, post that. So it's better to come to an agreement on the budget as proposed before we post one out. So it's better for us to have a conversation about it.
Okay, and then how much time would we allow between the proposed budget that we come to an agreement on to post it and then before we actually sit down and decide to vote on.
So I was thinking this week we would hammer out our questions in the meeting, and then this week we would have final numbers, proposed final numbers, and then we could move from there.
Okay, so with the proposed final numbers, will we then have another finance committee meeting, or then it would just be out there floating for 30 days to have the concerned citizens that may want to look at those numbers be able to
So that would be
print
posted.
it off? And to your thing about paper expense, I don't think we need to print it for them, but if we make it available online, they could print it themselves.
So we could post the proposed budget, and then we had it on the agenda to vote on the September 15th council meeting
Okay,
on adopting the budget. So we could, once we finalize the numbers, we can post that as proposed. And then if there are any other questions, we can redo that and post that online as a second proposed. And then by that time, we should be voting on the adoption of the budget on the September 15th council meeting.
But we could call a special council meeting to vote on the finalized budget, could we not? It's not in concrete that it has to be
Okay.
by September 15th. We could call a special council meeting to approve the budget, could we not?
Yes, you could.
By all means. That being said, are we satisfied from that standpoint?
yes, thank you.
Okay, cool.
Thank you very much.
And I've always been a big believer that I would love to have it posted on our website. Many municipalities have that, so I would like to see it. Facebook's one thing, but, if someone wants to pull it off the website and print it themselves, then that's on them. I can understand the concerned gentleman's comments from the audience about having
Right.
it available for audience members to review. I get that, and I'm fine either way on
Can I
that.
just recap for the mayor so
Sure,
he understands?
please.
So Mayor, they were asking about the budget being, the proposed budget being posted. And so we've decided that we weren't gonna post this budget because we haven't answered any questions or gone over this budget. But then once we do answer the questions, then that version of the proposed budget they would want posted online so that the citizens can view. And then they would vote on the next council meeting or call a special council meeting.
I have no problem with it. I know that we had a town hall meeting on the 24th, kind of talking about the recommendations for the upcoming fiscal year. I didn't receive any phone calls, comments, or anything from that. And then with this one here that we put out on last Monday, still hadn't received any comments or anything from anybody, and I guess everybody wants to be able to do it tonight, but, however you all want to do it is fine. I just wanted to make sure that it was adopted before October 1st.
Well, I would like to respond to that. One of the things that I would like to note about the town hall and everything is it's not the whole budget. It's just a summary that was given at the town hall along with some proposals. This involves our budget, line by line expenditure. And yes, I would like our constituents, they have been asking, and they do have a right to take a look at this, because it is, and I'll say it, it is their tax dollars, however way you want to word it. It is taxpayer money, and we should be transparent with how we are expending these funds.
And nothing's stopping you from sharing
Right.
it by any means. If that's something you want to do, then you're free to do so.
Well, they were asking, could we do this and post it on the website? And I really didn't see a reason not to do that.
Well, I would say that I didn't want to post tonight's on there because we could have done that a week ago. But why would I post something to the website when the council has the final say and the oversight of it? So I didn't want to post anything until the council had given their comments to let me know exactly what direction the council wanted to move in. Now, I spelled everything out a few weeks ago. And I mentioned that September the 15th would be the date that we voted on, and nobody said anything. But I just want to say that I've given it to you, and however much time it takes you to want to approve it on the council, I would just say, that's on you all. It has nothing to do with me, it has nothing to do with Lou. If you all want to wait till the first part of January to adopt it, I mean, I'm fine. But we've given it to you in enough time to be able to analyze it and to be able to break it down. And yeah, I understand, at the end of the day, it's taxpayers' money. And I hear everybody talking about their constituents. But I think when I ran for mayor, I ended up representing the whole city. So I don't represent District 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. I represent everybody that lives in the city of Irondale. So I think I have probably more constituents than anybody that's sitting up here on this dais.
Fair enough. Let's get into the questions. Councilman London, I always start from your end. What questions do you have that you would like to address the mayor with?
I just have one question. I know. I think when I was looking at the salaries, because I think you proposed, Mayor, 3% salary in the mayor. I think you proposed 3%, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, and if my total's right, the salaries really is what kind of push up the budget, because you got a lot of the public works and some other folks, or they're down in their budget. Let me see, I think public works is down, there was one more, I think, even with the salary of 3%. But if my total's right, I think that's about $850,000, $800,000 in salaries for this fiscal year for 3% rate. Am I close to that?
Yes, in the salaries, what is factored in the salaries is a 3% increase for all employees, as well as a 5% merit increase for those who qualify for a merit increase.
That's the only discrepancy I see. But
You didn't tell us that, Mayor.
I hadn't told you all anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I just walked in the door. You all had already
Right.
started the
No,
meeting.
I meant in the town hall, you didn't say anything about a 5% merit.
Councilman
increase.
Quaylaw. Councilman Quaylaw.
Yes, yeah, point of order on
Okay.
that, Councilman
Can I
London.
just speak to that? The 5% merit increase is dictated by the personnel board. So this is not something that I am creating. This is something that is created by the personnel board for every employee that have not reached their final step.
A
Did that
point of
answer your-
order again.
Did that answer your question, Councilman London?
I didn't, when I got rudely interrupted.
Yeah, a point of order on that again,
Right.
Council President, but we're each gonna have a certain amount of time.
I'm not doing that. I really don't want to do that. I want to go back to Councilman London there to make sure that his question is
Yeah,
satisfied.
I think.
But I just wanna make sure that he got his time, because I know when I'm speaking, I know there's gonna be questions, and normally when I'm in a board meeting on things with multi-million-dollar companies, if I have a question, I jot the question down, so that when the person finishes, I can come back to it, I can ask for time, or I can address it during my time.
That's why I like going last.
Thank you.
Councilman London, you want to pick up where y'all left off there?
Yes, yes, thank you. Another question is this community programs. What are some of the things we do with the community programs? What does that consist of?
Community programs, this year we set aside $50,000 for Ruffner. And this year, I would also like to set aside some funding for the Cahaba River, since that does run through the city of Irondale. It's a very attractive ecotourism point. It's used by a lot of people in the city. So I wanted to set aside money for both of those entities this year instead of just giving it to one.
All right, I'll be done. If I need a question, I'll ask later.
enough.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Cuellar.
All right, just for some clarity on the 50,000 for Ruffner Mountain, we gave them 50,000 earlier this year. Is this going to be something that you do every year for Ruffner Mountain?
I will probably propose it, Councilwoman Quire, every year.
What I did was, I actually took a look at the revenue, and there is one request that I have on the revenue, and that is to include as part of revenue, so that we have a very good understanding of what kind of revenue we are getting for our transport service fees. That needs to be a separate item, just like we have our garbage collection fees as a separate item. And I did make copies of our revenue to give to all the council members. Here's a copy for you. That's the only addition I would like to see on the revenue, is that one line item. There you go.
Let me pass that to specify.
And then as far as each department, again, on that issue of the transport emergency services, I would like to see a cost center added to that. Could be Department 6003 for transport services, just like we do with Public Works and we do with Parks and we do with all of the other departments. That is a new entity that's been created, therefore we need to show it on its own expenditures, so that we have something to go with.
Councilperson Quayle, can I speak to that right quick
Yes.
while you're talking about that? We'd already planned in FY '22 to create a revenue line item for the transporter and to create an expense line item up under the fire department to show the expenses that have been created by the transporter. I would ask that if you'll allow us just to be able to create those two line items than to create a whole nother department, because it's not a department. It's just an expense that is up under the fire department. And we can't go in and create a revenue line item that shows up under because everything is done by funds. This is fund accounting. So everything that you see is based on fund accounting. So the transporter and the fire department is up under the general fund, which is one. So everything falls up under that fund. And what we would like to do, so we don't get into all of these accounting, making all these accounting entries. Now, what we can do, once we create the revenue line item and we create the expense line item, we can run you a detailed report to show you exactly what expenses were applied to the transporter, as well as run you a line item to show you how the revenue came in for the revenue side of the transporter. But our preference would be, and really the best accounting principles to do that is not to create a whole separate fund for it. We can do cost accounting if you want us to be able to do something like that. We could do that, but we really don't want to create another fund because it's not a fund that sits there by itself. We currently have 28 checking accounts. We're trying to limit the amount of checking accounts that we have, so we don't want to open up another checking account just to show the revenue that's going in. But our accounting system and software is sophisticated enough where it can break it out and give you the details that you want.
Well, I'm not suggesting that we create another checking account fund. I'm suggesting that we follow the precedent that's there. We have, for instance,
But
we
those
have the parks that has salaries and wages, overtime, FICA, state pension, et cetera. We have Public Works that has salaries and wages, overtime, FICA, state pension, et cetera. We have fleet maintenance that has salaries and wages, et cetera. And I'm asking that we do the same thing with our transport services, that
And
we
what-
have salaries and wages, overtime, FICA, et cetera.
And what I'm saying is, we don't have employees in the fire department that they're just dedicated to that transporter, that we can take 15 employees, tie their salary, FICA, Social Security, state tax, federal tax. That's not the way that the fire department is set up. Those individuals diversify between their jobs. So it's not a set group of people that only do transporting and they don't do anything else.
Okay,
So it'd be very difficult for us to put in a system to be able to track who's on the transporter for this 2 weeks, what was their salary, what was their insurance, what we need to give to retirement. It's very hard for us to be able
Okay.
to do that. We don't have the sophistication in our accounting system to be able to do that.
Okay.
But we can track revenue versus expenses if you just want to see the totality of what it's bringing in and then what expenses are being expensed onto
right.
it.
What I'd like to see, Mayor Stewart, is the revenue as you just stated, and then do some cost accounting so that I know when we've got of fire department staff actually working with transporting services, because then that would apply towards that. And it is cost accounting, and I want to know how much it's costing us to operate this transport service.
Well, I said that we could put all that information in a
Okay.
spreadsheet. We can put it in a spreadsheet. I'm just saying, do not require us to go create another 20 accounts to put on this report to be able to do that. I'm not saying that we can't do it. I'm just saying allow us to be able to do that through a spreadsheet to break the cost out and to show you that, instead of trying to duplicate what you see for parks, for public works, for fire and police, admin, and et cetera.
Yes, okay. All right, so the other thing I did is I have some proposed revisions that I did on the budget, which I will share with all the council members and you, Mayor Stewart, to look at. Mr. London, did you give that copy? And here's your copy. And the reason I did that is because there are so many variances on line items. And I took those variances and made them closer to what they should be, using a 10% over or under. And this is why I made the revisions. Now, I didn't have my printer, my ink was out, so I bolded the proposed revisions. You'll notice that it is bolded versus the regular proposal that you made, Mayor Stewart. For instance, with elected officials, I kept that at 87,000. And then with the travel expenses, dropped that to 10,000. Communications expense, I had a question on that because the actual was 72,000. We budgeted 12,000. That's a 507% increase. Is there a reason for that increase?
The reason for the increase is because at the beginning of this fiscal year, the city ended up getting a new phone system that was put in. Instead of that cost being allocated to each department to show exactly what the phone bill should be for those departments, everything up until this point was allocated to the admin department.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then the, going up, your workman's comp, 538,000, we budgeted 260,000. That's 207%.
That is another one where the workers' comp and the property and casualty insurance bill is tied together through travelers. But before we close out the fiscal year, we will go in and make those adjustments. If you look in the property casualty line item, you will probably see that it's zero down there. But those two bills are tied together. So we just need to go in and separate those bills to reflect under the line items the actual cost.
Yeah, what I see on the property and casualty is I see 51,000, budgeted 260,000. And that was only 9% that was used there.
And what I'm saying, it was more than 9% used. It was just that it was put up under the workers' comp line item instead of being put up under the property and casualty. I would like to say one thing, because I did share this with you all when I did the spending plan for last year, and I also wanted to share it with you this year. I know everybody has their own philosophy about how they like to develop a budget. I shared it with you last year. I'm not a line-by-line person. I am not trying to hit every line, because there's no way I could correctly project 500 line items about what we're going to spend and what we're not going to spend. On some of those line items, you're going to hit them pretty close. Some of those line items, you're not going to hit them pretty close. But I want you all to think of the big picture, and I want you to think of this at the end of the day. If you look at the surplus that the city has at the end of August, it's almost $6 million. It's almost a $6 million difference between revenue and expenditures. I would like to ask Councilman Spivey, he's been here for about 5 or 6 years. Councilman London has been here a little bit longer. Do you all ever remember in the history of serving on the council that when we got to August, that you had a surplus of over $6 million. Now, it's really 8, but I'm gonna take out the American Rescue Plan, which is 1.5 million. I'm gonna take out the CARES Act, because it's really around 7.8 or 7.9. But I'm gonna pull those out to be fair, because those are one-time revenues. But at the end of the day, the city is $6 million to the good.
My response to that, sir, is.
I wasn't saying that to you, Councilperson Quayle. I'm saying that to everybody that's sitting up there.
And what I'm
That,
saying,
I'm just saying that, if you all think that $6 million today is not a good number to have, then we're in pretty bad shape as a municipality. But I was saying all of that to say, because I didn't get a chance to speak to how it was created. I mean, I shared with you all that I had a previous meeting and that I would try to get here. But if a budget or spending plan is not put into proper context, then how can you begin to destruct it if you don't even know how it was constructed?
may I speak to that now? Okay.
Oh, I'm through. It's you all's meeting.
All right. So, I hear what you're saying, but having the surplus, we have several infrastructure needs in our city. And instead of using funds for all of these things that I don't consider to be essential, we need to be investing them in our infrastructure. And this is why I am looking at the line-by-line items. And if you take a look at my proposal, you will see that if you do implement that, you wind up with over $1 million in additional revenue based on taking this line-by-line item approach. So we're not gonna spend $1.1 million, and we'll actually wind up with almost 5.8 million in surplus versus what you're proposing, which will be 4.6 million in surplus. So this is why it's a good idea, it's good business practice, whether it's a municipality or not. Budgets are budgets, you're working with finances, those don't change. When you have variances that are way off, 19%, you've only used 19%, you need to look at that and make those adjustments so that you can tighten the belt, so that you can invest in our capital, in our infrastructure, and additional capital expenditures. You're right, we haven't had this kind of surplus, but we need to invest it in our infrastructure. So if you look at,
Councilman Cuellar, I'm gonna give Councilman Box an opportunity to speak here for a little bit.
I mean, if she's not finished.
I'm gonna come back around. I
Okay.
wanna make sure that as we spread this time out,
Mhm.
that we've had some equal opportunities to speak. I'm gonna come back around.
Okay, very well,
Yeah.
very well. Looking at this, and once again, Mayor, as I always tell you, and I realize that the business and the city are not the same thing, I actually see that we're in pretty good shape. We've hit a lot of our targets. Now, I am a line item kind of guy, because that's where I have to run the business. If I spent too much on safety equipment, then I don't need to buy as much safety equipment, or I need to start charging the guys that it's their fourth hard hat that I have given to them. With that said, we do have several departments that their line items are off. And when I'm saying off, I'm just saying they're in the unfavorable category. The good news is, without exception, I think we only had one department that had an unfavorable there. Everyone else hit the target well. So I agree a little bit with, we need to have the line items addressed, but to me, that's a department head issue, not so much as an executive issue. That's where the department heads need to look at it and say, okay, hey, look, I budgeted this much, I spent this much, what was going on there? And I'm sure they may already know that, but we don't. So now in looking at this, that's what I'm saying. But just throwing the fire department out there, looks like he did a great job to me. He basically saved 790 of what his proposed budget was. He had 790,000 to the positive. He's asking for a $469,508 increase to his budget, which is $281,345 less than what he saved. Now, my negotiation side of me wants to say, okay, I'm not gonna give you $495, I'll give you a little bit closer, I may split the difference with you. But then on the other hand, why wouldn't I? Because he's the one that's there every day that sees what's in there. So as an overall mayor, looking at it, as you said, as a big picture, we look in good shape. But I would like to see the department heads get a little bit closer on their unfavorable line items to try to bring those more in line. And that's where, the projection, and it's hard to, believe me, it's hard to project everything, it's hard to understand everything. But that's where I am at on this whole thing, the ins, the outs, the ups and downs. Let's, on our unfavorable stuff, let's, hey, we won 43-0, but like Nick Saban said, we didn't actually block that pass with the proper form. Let's work on the form. That's all I have to say.
Councilman Sims?
I agree with a lot of what Councilor Box just said. Overall, like the mayor said, we're doing pretty good. I think there's just some places where some of the departments maybe need to work on their efficiencies or trim some down, but overall, I mean, said pretty much everything I would have said, so I'm good.
And myself, I think the surplus, just to address the question earlier, the surplus is nothing that I have seen in my time, so I'm happy to have it. I understand wanting to put systems in place to manage it as best and effectively as possible, so it's being spent in the best means possible. But at the end of the day, I am looking at the department line items, trying to make sure that the department overall is balanced, not necessarily if tires and tubes was blown out of the water, but gas was necessarily saved. So the line items don't bother me too much. I agree whenever you have gross variances or something that just sticks out like a sore thumb, maybe figure out, okay, is there something going around that specific line item? But I think that's something that we can address, like, in that department head can address, like, in time. Going back to Councilman Box's comments, I think that's more of a department head decision, not necessarily legislative or, or executive for that matter. I think we have very smart department heads, and I think they can do that job. But yes, variances that stick out like a sore thumb, yeah, we might need to be looking at those. And Mayor, I believe you said you had some kind of alarm bells that would ring or something like that in your accounting software that would alert you so that you could address those things?
Well,
I'm paraphrasing.
no, you're good. You're
Okay.
right. I'm trying to gather my thoughts.
Okay.
I can go in to every line item and to block that line item from every transaction. But do I really trust the people that are working here at department heads, or I don't trust them to be able to do it? We hire them to be able to do a job. And is it my job to make sure that they, of course, we're gonna make sure that they do their job. Like I stated to you all about the variances and the different line items. There's stuff that comes up that we have no control over. I'll give you a prime example. There was $502,000 that was budgeted for Mercedes. Somebody may look at that line item now and say, wow, they paid them over, we'll just say, $720,000. Well, they went $250,000 over the line item. Well, do you know that you have an agreement with Mercedes that says that you have to rebate them a certain amount of the taxes based on what they generate? And they just happen to have a phenomenal year where they are now one of the largest sales tax producers in the city. So if I just pull up the report and say, let me see what the variance is, and I automatically jump to the conclusion that, oh, they did something wrong because they've spent over $250,000. Well, you need to have that conversation with Mercedes to ask them, why did they sell so many cars And why does the city have to rebate them the portion of that money back? So I'm just saying that there's I understand that, this council, that's the way you all want to operate, and that's the way that you all want to manage the money. At the end of the day, it belongs to you all to be able to do it. This is my proposal that I've given to you all. But if you all want to adjust it and to do whatever you all want to do with it, I'm out of it now. It belongs to you all. And that's under the state code, that you all are responsible for the finances, for the budget and all that. So if you all want to go back, chop up all these different categories and do them because they're out of variances, I'm going to say, bless you, and you all go and do that. But we will probably have a lot of amendments this fiscal year because of that process. So I just wanted to throw, and I'm not here to, I've stated my piece. I'm not asking for anybody to respond, to say something totally different, because we could be here all night going back and forth about philosophical differences and how to be able to create a spending plan and all of that stuff. I'm not here for that. I just wanted to let you all know that it's very difficult to be able to hit a line item before you have the opportunity to do it. And it's very easy to look at stuff now, 10 months after everything is happening, you ain't got the data in, and now you want to go back and pick everything apart. That's my final kick.
In my context of that comment is that every time that I have ever asked you a question, you've always been able to say, well, this is what happened, or this is what drove that, and that's all I ask is, hey, at least you're aware of it, you know what's driving it, and if a plan needs to be put in place, then you're already usually 2 steps ahead of my question, and I appreciate that, and that's all that I ask is just having a finger on the pulse and knowing what's driving it, and I do know that things are going to unexpectedly come up. That being said, Councilman London, do you have any questions for the mayor based on what you've heard as we've been going through this?
Well, I want to echo Councilman Box, kind of what he said, and Councilman Sims, and also just comment to the mayor. I think the mayor, and this has happened not just with this mayor, it's happened with the mayor, previous mayor before that, is that I think they've all sit down with the department's head. And I think they do trust their department heads enough where they come up with what they need with a budget. And only they know what they need. We don't really know. And we over the budget, and we have to approve this budget as a council. We always get that. But I think every mayor, I've been here 3 mayors now, every mayor has sit down with the department head, and they've decided what they want because they know what they need in their department. And then we don't come out here and tear it up. We've never came out here and just tear it up and all of that. We make comments, and there may be a few changes that need to be made. But we've trusted our mayors and our department heads in the past 8 years to make the right decision for the city of Irondale. And $6 million surplus, the past 3 mayors have done a good job with that. And we're in a situation we are right now because we have had mayors here and department head that understand what we need to do as far as the city is concerned, and they trust one another, and that's why we are today. Nothing that the council has done, really, there's nothing been the council has done. It's about the department head, the mayors that's been here before, and that's why we're in the situation we're in. And we've never come up here and just tear down the budget. We've never done that, and so, we looked at it, we had some comments, we talked with the mayor. Matter of fact, a lot of the questions we had, we got it before we got to this meeting, and we had them all answered before then. And we pushed the budget forward. And I think this council needs to trust our department head, and we need to trust our mayor, and that they know what to do and do the right thing for our city. And that's my comment, so I agree with you, what you were saying, Councilman Barnes.
Councilman McQuair?
The issue doesn't have to do with trust. The issue has to do with this council's
Councilman
responsibility.
Councilman Quaylor.
I'm talking.
You need to make your comment,
You
not about
asked
me. Make your
Okay.
comment about you. You have your
But
question.
the issue doesn't have to do with trust. It has to do with the responsibility of this council. That's the reason that you have the council and you have the mayor. The council is the one that oversees the finances and makes sure that everything is in place
Stick it to the
and that
choir.
we're able to take funds and put them at the best interest of Irondale. And as I've stated before, we have a lot of infrastructure needs, a lot of capital needs that are going on right now. And I would like to respond to the Mercedes tax rebate. If you notice there, I did not change that budgeted amount, because I do understand that it's based on car sales and the rebate. So that amount was left in place. What I did here was I took a look at the variances for each department. It's not that I don't trust the department heads. It's that these variances are so way off, and we need to bring them more in line. And when you do bring them in, you do have mid-year revisions to a budget that you can make. But for right now, I'm saying, we've got a water department that we approved a capital improvement plan of $6.1 million. And I want to make sure that we do that. We don't need to issue debt. We can do that. And we can do that when we take a look at our budget and make sure that those funds are available. It's why I'm asking a lot of questions, because I want to make sure that we follow through on the capital improvement for the water department. The whole city relies on our water. And if we do not make those improvements, the supervisor told us, we have got to make these improvements. We can't kick this can down the road. I want to make sure that we're able to do that in this budget.
May I respond to that?
Yes.
Okay, so I agree completely with you on that, and we can adjust the budget as we move through the year. If we need to have a quarterly finance meeting, that's fine. And then if we need to propose resolutions to the agenda to do some of that, we can. That's absolutely possible. What I don't want to see is us having 50 resolutions every council meeting to move money around from one bucket to another. But if we're tracking down, where the department as a whole is not trending towards, spending of what they've been allowed to spend, and maybe we can move some funds around at a high level. Because I agree with you completely. If we've got some line items and the money's not being spent, and if we can reallocate it, then I can live with that. What I'm getting at is the fact that we're just not going to, sit through a meeting with 50 resolutions about line items every other Wednesday night. I think that's a bit much, politely saying that. But yeah, if we have a finance meeting and we realize that, hey, this department has been very frugal with their money. They're not missing anything, and there's nothing anticipated coming down the pipe. You try to eliminate your surprises as much as possible. I have no problem moving money around. So no problems whatsoever with that.
Right. And one of the things, in the banking industry, we don't use the term frugal, it's good stewards with the funds that they've been entrusted to. And as far as moving funds around, you don't rob Peter to pay Paul with a line item. If you have a line item and you're under budgeted on that line item, then you go on and you make that at mid-year revision. You up it to where it's more balanced. But you don't take from, let's say, for instance, office supplies and put it towards electricity. You don't do that. You have to let it go as it's going and make your revisions at mid-year so that you have an accurate picture of what was actually spent on office supplies or electricity. But you don't move funds around that way with line items.
I think we're saying the same thing. I think you worded it better than I did, but I think we're ultimately saying the same thing. So I would agree with you in the spirit of that. That being said, if you have, proposals that you would like to, show, then, I know you've printed them off, and if you would like to get with Mayor and Lou on that, then, by all means, that's your, if that's what you want to do.
That's why we're having this discussion,
I know,
because it's a public meeting.
I understand.
And I
but
would
think we
rather deal with it publicly than behind closed doors.
I think there's no way we're gonna go through every single line item. We'd be here till dinner tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what I'm referring to. So the high-level stuff, like I said in the very beginning, the high-level stuff, absolutely, you know, that's what these are for. But as we get too granular, that's where I kind of go back to the mayor and to the department heads and saying, I feel pretty good that they're gonna be able to handle that.
All right, well, you're talking about high-level stuff.
Yeah.
One of the things that constituents have been complaining about, we caught up, because the mayor used the term, it was a means of catching up with giving $100,000 to the schools that are located in Irondale. I didn't have a problem with that. I mean, catch up, okay. But now, we're not catching up, we're going further with $150,000. And we've got capital improvements, we have infrastructure that we need to make, and we need to put that as a priority, and not $150,000 for schools.
Can I answer that?
I was gonna ask her, my follow-up question was gonna be to see if
Yeah,
y'all
the-
had that conversation.
One of the main reasons that I increased it from 100,000 to 150,000, because it was last year when we gave the schools 100,000, Councilperson Cuellar complained because we wasn't giving any money to the K-4 programs.
No, I did not.
You went to the principal,
I did
the
not.
lady's not here, but she called me and told me that you, after we allocated the $100,000 for the schools, you went behind my back and went to her and asked her to come and be able to ask for some more money for the K-4 program.
That is not true.
You even mentioned.
That is not true.
You even mentioned when we got ready to process those checks that you thought that K-4 was more important and that we should pour money into K-4. And I'm actually agreeing with you because I have a book from the state of Alabama that shows that if you want to make a significant impact in education, the place to invest those funds is in K-4 and also in career development. That's why the extra money is there, because I wanted to put additional funding in K-4. The state of Alabama has one of the best programs in the state to be able to do that. And also I wanted to put some money into career tech.
What
Councilman
I
Cuellar,
said,
are
what
you-
I said to the school was that the elementary schools are as important as the middle schools and as the high schools. Therefore, I believe in distributing funds equally, not giving this one much more and this one a little bit more and this one a whole lot less. That was what I said. Equitable distribution. That's what I said.
Are you?
For every school.
Are you, regarding the K-4 information that the mayor's sharing with you, does that assist you with your question?
What it doesn't assist me with is that our residents are complaining about this high dollar amount for our schools, and I'm asking that we go back to what was given in 2019, which was $20,000, and give each school $5,000, which was done in 2019, go back to doing that.
Can I
So
comment?
just let me just clarify. So what you're saying is dropping the fund from overall 100 down to 20?
150 to 20.
150 to 20, sorry, I was going off
Yes.
last year's information. 150 down to 20. So what you're saying is, and I think this is where Councilman London's fixing to go, and I wanna allow that because it sounds like he's got a good clarifying question, is, so you do not believe that the investment that we made into the schools was a good one?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we have infrastructure needs that are a priority that we need to focus on. I'm not against giving money to schools. 20,000 is reasonable.
Okay. Councilman London, please.
Well, you know,
Easy turbo.
I didn't mean to laugh, but there's nothing more important than our children. Nothing more important than our children. And if you have some, if you have grandbabies, then you understand that. If you have a passion for young folks, the $150,000 is not enough. It's not, it really is not enough. You go around different municipalities, they pour money into their schools, into their systems, so they can have better things, better education. So you're talking about infrastructure, our children are our infrastructure. They're the one that's gonna carry on when we're not here anymore. So, $10,000? Really?
20.
$20,000 for Shays Valley High School. 1,500 students, $20,000.
No, they get 5.
I'm sorry, they get $5,000 for 1,500 students at Shays Valley High School. Mr. President, can I be excused? Because I think I've heard enough.
All right. And I would like to add,
Have a good night. I hope you get to your 6
Qualified.
o'clock. Well, one moment here, because Councilman London's been able to reply to your comments. Councilman Box, I'd be interested in hearing your reply to that. Because if this is a proposal adjustment that she's making, then we need to talk about it.
If you
Right.
if you don't mind, if you'll let her respond. And
Fair
then
enough.
then I'll move from there, but maybe we need to limit the response time.
Okay.
yeah, when you talk about other municipalities, these are municipalities that run their own school districts. We have Jefferson County that provides hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of funding for our schools. And they are located in Irondale. We do have Irondale children that attend the schools as well as other children. And I'm saying that we need to prioritize the entire needs of Irondale. And right now, the entire needs of Irondale is reliant on our water system. And our water system needs to be improved. We can no longer kick that can down the road. And it's why I'm saying, let's give the schools $20,000 and make an equitable distribution like you did in 2019, and you even went further. You asked the schools to come back and tell you how those funds were used. And I think that's great. I'm not anti-school, anti-student, but I am prioritizing the best interest of Irondale here is our water system. It needs to be done. We passed a resolution for a $6.1 million capital improvement bill for them. And we need to make sure that we have those funds before we start giving all of this other money away. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you. Sir? Councilman Box?
Okay, thank you. Just a general statement at first. It's good to see everybody be passionate. Because when people are passionate, that means they're gonna work hard to try to get something done, instead of being apathetic. The thing I would like to see is the differences in the degrees of our passion. We're all working toward the same goal. Councilwoman Quaylar appears to be a very detailed person, which is a strong suit. Every team needs that one extremely detailed person. Sometimes two, depends on the size of the team. But then you also have the other guys under that have the big heart, that just want to do everything for everybody that's needed as well. But getting back to the thing of the whole budget, I'm drifting off into a ministry realm, and I apologize for that.
Well, before you do that, do you have a response because right now we basically have a proposal that Councilwoman Cuellar is working on. So that's what I'm asking. Do you have a direct reply to take that from 150 down to 20?
Okay, so we'll revisit back to everybody as we did Councilman London with rediscussing other things. We're just keeping on the one subject.
I'm staying on task right now just because it sounds like this is an actual
I understand
proposal,
very well.
whereas everything else has been concept.
Without seeing exactly, what the school's needs are, I think there's validity in both things. I think there's validity in saying, what is Jefferson County doing or not doing for their schools that our students attend? Now, with that said though, they are our students, they're not Jefferson County students, they're our children. So do they need these things that the county is not adequately providing? Well, then of course we need to send money to them. We need to send, as John said, we need to send as much as possible. I do agree with, as Councilman Cuellar said, many other municipalities that are throwing monies at schools, it's because the school system is their system and they get the money directly from the state. So there's a balance between the two positions here. I don't see where the 150,000 is too out of line, as long as we do what Councilwoman Cuellar is saying, is get to moving forward on the improvements to the water. If they were as critical as they were presented to be, to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish back in the spring, why aren't we moving quicker on that?
Well,
The 150, excuse me, Mayor, I'm sorry. 150 to me is no problem.
Okay.
Send that to the schools.
The
Divide it up. That's not a problem at all. But let's move forward on the other, or let's find out what's going on, or we may be saving money by waiting. So there again, that's my opinion on this. I'm good with lowering it, or I'm good with leaving it as the mayor's proposal, either way.
Mayor?
You wanted to know why we wasn't moving with the water proposal.
Yes,
And the reason that we wasn't, I think I stated it at the last council meeting, that there is funding that's going to be a part of the infrastructure bill. And it doesn't make sense for us to go out and start spending money now with this bill hanging out there. And there's the possibility that we can have the whole 6.2 funded through the infrastructure bill because they are looking for ready-made projects. So I asked the council that if you would just sit tight for a couple of months, let's see how this money is gonna flow from Washington. And if it flows, we got money to be able to do stuff that we don't even have to pay for.
thank you, Mayor. And that's a great idea. I'm glad for the explanation on that.
Councilman Sims?
I'm not sure. One, I think our infrastructure is definitely important, and I agree with the mayor. I mean, if we think there's this potential of having the water stuff taken care of in a couple months, if we just wait, seems a no-brainer not to wait and see what happens. I also think if we're saying, I guess the proposed budget has 4.6 million of surplus, I've got no issue with upping the amount we give to each school, or not each school, but totals to $150,000, which I think is what, 37.5 for each school.
That's not the way it was done, though.
Well, I don't know. Again, I don't know if they present projects and then.
Councilman Sims, let me tell you how the money was allocated for the schools, and I'm quite sure that Ms. Pike can vouch for this is the way that is done all across the country. What we did was we took the amount of money, we took the amount of students at each school, and we appropriated the money to each school based on the amount of students. Now, Ms. Pike, isn't that a formula that everybody uses in the state of Alabama when they're allocating school money is based on school population?
Well, Mayor, the only thing that I'm familiar with is there are some municipalities that give, want me to come to the microphone?
That's fine.
Go ahead.
No, that's
We'll be able to hear you better online.
Okay.
Well, let me say this before you get started, because I know you're getting ready to talk about Clay. Clay didn't do that. They just give the schools a certain amount of money. Centerpoint doesn't do that. They just give the schools a certain amount of money.
No,
But I wanted to make sure, well, Centerpoint does it equally.
no.
Okay, all right, I'll let you speak, I'm sorry.
Okay. And I personally don't agree with this, but this is the way they do it, and it's their money.
Okay.
They give stipends to the principals. So it doesn't necessarily go to the actual students. They give a stipend, a supplement for their salary. And Clay does this, Pitson does this, and I'm not sure, I think Centerpoint does too, because they give Van Phillips a lot of money.
Right.
And so it goes directly to the principals, to their, you know.
Well, I was asking you for the state funding
But
model.
I want to say this, and I'm going to say it to each of you and each of you. I so appreciate what Irondale did, and I made this well known at the board meeting, that the city of Irondale gave it to our students for furthering their education. Not that I have any beef or anything with any principal or anything. I just appreciated y'all giving it to for the benefit of our students. And thank you so much. And whether you agree with that or not, that's my take on it, and I'm sticking to it.
Can you confirm Mayor's calculation method, Ms. Pike?
I'm sorry?
Can you confirm Mayor's calculation method?
What is the council president? The schools have a 20-day enrollment, and all of their funding is based on who shows up for the first 20 days. That's why it's very important that the schools are trying to make sure that they get a proper
Right.
head count. Because based on the amount of students that they have in that school, that's how the state of Alabama allocate what funding
Oh,
is
yeah,
going
I see what
to
you're
be given to
asking
those
now.
schools.
Absolutely, yes.
And to me, that was the fairest way to be able to distribute it based on the number of students at the school. Shades Valley got 1,300 students. Grantswood has 469. So should Grantswood get 25,000 the same way that Shades Valley get 25,000? And I just wanted to have a model that could be used even when I'm not here. But that's what the state of Alabama used as their funding model
Yeah.
for the school.
I know that you would ask her to
This
con.
is true, thank you for, I didn't understand what you were saying.
Right.
Yeah.
But, and, you know, when you talk about Jefferson County and what we might be doing and what we might not be doing, we're doing everything we can. By law, we're having budget hearings this coming Thursday and the next Thursday. We have auditors that come in and have to testify. So we know where our money is, but there are so many wonderful things out there, like subscriptions to foreign countries where they can talk to each other and see how other countries, how they live. All kinds of wonderful opportunities that teachers have to raise the money or ask for donations. And money like this comes in so, it's used so well. And with our society and our global, needing to be incorporated, you just have no idea how much this money has helped our students
Right.
and our teachers provide extra things for them. And yes, you do start in pre-K. And yes, you do get that young child. And yes, we do need more funds for that. And if you go to Bryant Elementary, you'll see what the state has funded for a pre-K classroom. It is absolutely a wonderland. And if we could furnish every 4K classroom like that one's furnished, it would benefit our children so much. And I agree with John London. Our children are our infrastructure. And yes, we do have a lot of things. We've got bumpy streets, we've got a poor water system, and we need that attended to. And thank you, and thank you for attending to that and being aware of that.
Thank you, Ms.
Ms.
Pike. I
Pike, may I
appreciate you.
respond to one of the things that you said? Because this is what constituents were asking me. How many children from Irondale attend the schools that are run by Jefferson County? And I did do that. I did meet with Dr. Gonsolin, and he told me, for instance, Shades Valley, you've got 1,300 students. Of those 1,300, a little over 500 are from Irondale. The elementary schools, one had 479 students. A little over 200 are from Irondale. So constituents are asking, they're saying we're paying our property taxes to Jefferson County, and they're supposed to be sending that money to all of the schools, and now we're wanting to subsidize these schools by taking more taxpayer dollars from Irondale, and we're using something that's not really fair, because we want to support our Irondale students, but is it fair to go on and divvy that up and use it based on 1,300 instead of what you've got here? And this is why this
I
has
don't
come
think
up.
it's a matter of fairness, because every child that goes to our schools, their parents pay taxes. They pay federal taxes, county taxes, city taxes. They pay taxes just like the Irondale children do. And every child in Jefferson County deserves a quality education, no matter where they go. And all of our schools are not just segregated to Irondale citizens or Center Point citizens or Gardendale
try to
citizens.
explain that to the folks that live here.
Because we're Jefferson County.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and just push this back for a second. Thank you, Ms. Pike. I appreciate your time. This is the math that we've heard of for years and everything like that. And I know some people continue to have an issue with it. Some people don't. This is, and I'm commenting on it based on just my time on the floor here. This item is close to my heart, for a number of reasons, and Mayor, if you would have asked for more, I would have fought for you on it. Because when I first moved here to Irondale, and I started seeing some of the developments and everything like that, I'm not gonna say who I heard it from or when I heard it, but the moral of the story is, let's see here, because I want to protect the innocent, is basically the things that happen in Irondale don't happen for families, because we don't have families here because of the school system.
Now, I can't understand, turn your microphone.
Sure. So basically, the things that happen in Irondale don't happen for kids with families because of the school systems here in this city and everything, okay? And that was coming from someone that I respected a lot and still do. So when I heard that, it really cut me to the core. And I said, we've got to do better with our schools, because the future growth of Irondale are not the young professionals that are going to live here for 4 years and then move when they get their real job, or the people that are fading out and then their kids are going to sell their properties to whomever. It's the families that are growing up in our city. That's the future of our city. And that's the way I see it. And I feel that schools are an integral part of that. And now I'm seeing that manifest I'm seeing more families, more kids in our neighborhoods and things of that nature. And I think anything we can do to assist those schools and attract those families is key. So that's my comment on
Councilman
that.
Spivey, I just want to reiterate again, this is not an issue of being anti-student against the schools. I am for the schools. I actually sat down and met with principals. I want to do what we can for the students in the schools. What I am saying is that we need to prioritize the best interest of our entire community. And right now, we do have the water system that needs to be upgraded. We need to make those things. You can't kick the can down the road. And there are other ways that we can help our schools. We have the business community that
I'm
can
going to
help
I need
with
to
the
stop here for a
schools.
second, because I want to ask you, because now we're in work mode here. Are you making an official proposal that line item is changed?
Yes, I am proposing that we consider this because we need to expend funds and put those funds towards our infrastructure. That is important.
Okay. So, Ms. Lou, can you document the fact that she's making that proposal? Okay. That being said, I'm open to additional proposals and additional conversation.
Is it my
Councilman
turn?
Box?
Okay,
Go for
thank
it.
you.
Yep.
Okay, so we've talked for 15 to 20 minutes now on 150,000 on a very, very large budget.
Indeed.
I think we got way off in the weeds, okay? And I respect everybody's opinions and passions. I've said that before. But, and please, someone stop me if I'm incorrect. But as far as moving on the budget now, is this the appropriate time to talk about how we're gonna realize the actuals for this budget by revenues coming in? Is this a good time for questions on that, or is that for another meeting?
State that question, but dumb it down for me a little bit more.
Okay. You got money coming in.
Yep.
How are you gonna earn that money coming in?
Copy that. And that's
Okay.
the questions you want cleaned up right
We
now?
have proposals of how we're going to earn that money coming in. Is this the meeting to talk about that in a finance committee meeting, or is that for another meeting?
Do you have specific revenue questions you'd like to address the mayor with?
Well, we talked about decreasing the occupational license fee
Right?
and increasing the auto tax, which I agree with one of those two. I'm not sure that the decrease is warranted until we have a realization of what the increase is going to be. In other words, that's kind of the way I run finances, and the mayor made a great point. Different people have different ideas. And so he has a very good feel for what's going on in the city, but I'm just not sure about that. And once again, is this the place to discuss that?
If you have a question about revenue generation, then by all means.
Is that a place to discuss this, Mayor, or is that
No,
something?
it's a finance meeting.
Perfect. So if you will cover again the proposed projected increases by increasing the automotive sales tax and the other taxes as in comparison with the decrease in the occupational license fee, what is the surplus going to be after the offset for the decrease is put in place?
Well, first of all, I would like for us to agree that this is a approximation.
Oh, yes, sir.
Because I don't
That's
want you to say,
exactly
I
where I'm at,
don't
too.
want you to say that I gave you this information and then, you know,
I agree,
six
yes.
months later, we look at the income statement and we got a variance.
Yes, sir, I agree.
So, I mean, I can only give you the idea.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that if we reduced occupational by 0.25, which was reducing the total by $700,000, and increasing the automotive tax by from a half a percentage point, that's not even included in the revenue. I didn't even include that in the revenue.
Okay.
Because it was very hard to determine. I looked at a few of the automotive companies. I extrapolated out what they did this year, and I looked at if we added an additional percentage, 0.5% this year, or for next year, based on what they did this year. Again, this is an estimate. Those two would be a wash.
Okay. All right, so with that said, I respect that projection. And I realize it is a projection, because if we could sit here with our crystal ball and say that $500 million of Mercedes are gonna be sold, and we could decrease everybody's occupational license fee. But I am making this proposal, and because of my naivety and non-experience on doing it on a political realm, I simply think, yes, let's move forward with whatever those increases are, but let's hold off on any decrease to the occupational license fee till we're 90 days, 6 months into this, then we can review it, especially if, as you said, we can have another financial committee meeting and make adjustments to our budget as we go. That's my
Councilman
proposal.
Box, what we've done in the past
Yes, sir.
is that we try to, if we're gonna make any decisions after the budget is accepted, we try to wait to after January income is in,
Yes, sir.
because December and January are the heaviest income months for the city.
Okay.
That will determine how the rest of the fiscal year is going to flow. I would say that's a good point to, let's go through the first October, November, December, January.
Yes, sir.
Let's have a finance meeting probably towards the end of February.
Yes, sir.
And we can review everything that has been presented, and we can look at the actuals versus the budgeted amounts. And whatever adjustments you all want to make at that time, I would say that is the time to make it. But everybody now is doing everything based on projections and estimates.
I agree.
But after you get the first 4 months of the year in, you have a pretty good idea how the rest of the month, how the rest of the fiscal year is going to flow. And I think that's a good time, the end of February, is to, let's reconvene. And
Okay.
let's go through everything. And if there are certain line items that are out of whack, let's adjust them. If there are certain line items that you all want me to put a stop button on, that nobody can spend anything until they get it approved by Lou, we can do that. There's several different things, you know,
Yes, sir.
that we can do. I just don't want us to get bogged down to think that you got to get it right in September.
Oh, yes, sir.
Because I can tell you right now, I've been here for like 14 years, you never get it right in September. But you can always get it right in September after the fiscal year is over. But we can easily come back and reconvene and look at everything. I mean, we can look at it, I mean, we try to get you all the statements once a month. So when you get that statement once a month, if you got questions, that's the best time to be able to ask, because it's fresh on our mind.
Yes, sir.
We can go back, research it, give you whatever information you need, and go from there.
Very good. So with that said, I have complete trust in our department heads. I simply was just a little coaching on there on some of the line items to take a look at. But obviously, they've done a great job because they didn't spend all the money allocated. So, it's a good thing we're not like the military, because that was in the military. You didn't spend it, you didn't get it next year. So,
Well, Councilman Box, that's one of the things that we don't practice here.
Yes.
I mean, I encourage them, don't spend it thinking that you're not going to get it next year.
yes, sir.
Because you don't need to spend it, don't spend it for the sake of doing that, because you still may not get it next year.
Right.
So we don't have a flurry of individuals running in September with invoices trying to purchase stuff that if they got money left over on the line item, they're trying to spend it up to justify why they need to get it the next year.
Yes.
And I have to give that to the department heads. They believe enough in themselves and how we sit down and talk through everything. They know that if they have a genuine need, I'm gonna present the need. If they don't have a genuine need, they know that I'll be able to tell them as well. So this budget is, if you get into all the departments, it's really the departments. Lou and I sit down, we talk to them, we want to know why you're thinking and what you're doing, why you're doing what you want to do. But a lot of it is tied to goals that we've set to say, these are the things we want to be able to accomplish for the upcoming year, and we try to point those resources in that way. Now, if the council wants to if the council desires to be able to complete a strategic plan, and the council develop your own goals and your objectives, and you give that to us and say, this is how we want the money to be spent, we'll do that. But I haven't received that so far. So maybe that's one of the things you all may want to work on in an individual meeting, is to be able to get together and you all identify what you want to happen in the city, what you want the city to be able to look like, and then you can allocate the funding to be able to make sure that those things happen.
Yes, sir. As I said, I think the budget looks well. The only areas I would see is, as I mentioned, let's not decrease our revenue or proposedly decrease our revenue in any way until we get some time to see, is our revenue increased or decreased. As far as the schools, whatever we need to do to help the schools, our department heads are doing a great job. As far as what I see on here, I simply pointed out, as I said, we got a little form that maybe needs to be worked on, and that may be being too picky. But I have no other questions. I have some comments from some citizens, but basically theirs was addressed at the very first of the meeting of having asked for copies of the proposed budgets, and I think we've addressed that. I do think that we need to give them a copy of our finalized proposed budgets before we come to a meeting and vote on it, and it needs to be there for more than 3 to 5 to 7 days. Now, that's my opinion, and that's the last thing I'm addressing now. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Sims?
I just wanted to clarify with the mayor, you had your town hall where you proposed some increases in some of the revenue stuff. Those estimates are or are not in your 2022 estimates?
They are not in there. So, I mean, there's definitely, there's more money sitting out on the table.
Okay.
I was going to bring a resolution to the next council meeting to be able to adjust all of those consumer use, sales use, all of those taxes that I talked about in the town hall meeting. I was going to bring a resolution for the council to consider increasing those, increasing those levels there to be able to have a funding stream for the capital, the capital budgets. One of the things I talked about also in the town hall meeting is that a lot of people have shared with me, or my constituents have shared with me, that they don't have a problem with taking a property tax, long as they can be able to see where those 6 mills are going. They want them to go into things that are visible, things that they can touch, things that are tangible. They don't have a problem with going along with that. So I'm not bringing that one because it requires more work to be able to get that one done. But I would say that at the beginning of FY22, I will have something for the council to consider moving forward with the 6 mil property tax to be able to fund our capital budget to make sure that we will have a constant stream of income to be able to take care of things in our infrastructure.
Councilman Sims?
The occupational license fee line item, that does reflect the lowering?
It reflects the lower. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, it reflects a lower amount.
That's all I have.
I know, Mayor, you usually tend to be aggressive on your expenditures typically and conservative on the income. And I know that's one way you've always kind of done it and everything like that. And I think that's also has a lot to do with when we have a surplus in things. I think it's good accounting practices. Think you're going to spend more and think you're going to make less, right?
That's the goal.
Yeah. That being said, Councilwoman Cuellar, do you have any additional proposals?
Yeah, I did have a couple of follow-ups. Because Councilman Brox brought this up, and that has to do with the auto sales tax. I'd like you to consider raising that to 1.75 instead of 2%, because it will keep them competitive against the other municipalities that are close to Irondale. and it would offset that .25 lowering of the occupational license fee. So if you would raise it to 1.75, and then lower the occupational to .25, I think that one would sell a lot easier with the auto mall, than raising it all the way up to 2%. Want to keep them competitive with other municipalities, and I think that'd be a good way to approach it. And I appreciate you putting off the property tax, because that would be hard to sell right now, because we don't have anything to show our residents as to what improvements we've done from an infrastructure standpoint. When they start to see the water system improvements being done, and all the road repairs and these things, stormwater drains, these things going on, it will be a means to demonstrate to them that we are committed to improving our infrastructure and make it easier for them to live in Irondale, as well as bring in new potential business. When you've made these capital improvements, you're going to be able to bring in additional business. So those are my comments.
Okay.
You consider that.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other comments on the budget as it stands presented? I know I had a few questions. One second. I know I had a few questions we discussed. I'll get with you offline on that, because I don't think it's worthy of the group chat. It's minor stuff. That being said, I know, trying to remember if we've ever taken public comments on a finance meeting, but we have a few people with us tonight. So, Ms. Pike, would you like to reapproach?
I have a correction
Okay.
of what that Ms. Pike said.
Okay.
I texted Dr. Gonsolin, and I asked him to make sure that I was giving you the correct information. And the other cities do give stipends to the principals, but they also to the teachers and services. For example, Clay gives to principals, but also gives teacher scholarships, and they pay to cut the grass. And it comes out of each school's budget to cut the grass, and that is an extreme expense. And so, and he says Pinson does something similar. And I know that we have on many occasions cut Irondale's grass, Grantswood's grass, and so we help in kind things a lot too here in Irondale for the schools. So I just wanted to clarify that. It's not just for principals, they do give it to other items that are needed. So, so if anybody says, well, that's all they do is give to principal, then I corrected that, so I wanted to make sure that everybody understood. And I'll say this, if the $150,000 gives y'all heartburn, because we do have a lot of infrastructure needs, I don't think there's anybody at the Jefferson County Board of Education that would be upset, you know, if one year, if you had to attend to a lot of infrastructure needs, you know, and you weren't able to, I don't think there's one person on our board that would, you know, be upset about that. So I just wanted to let y'all know that too.
Thank you, ma'am.
Because I know what Jefferson County Board of Education needs, and I know what the City of Irondale needs. So just, that's my.
Thank you.
Councilman Spivey, can I add two things I forgot to mention?
Are these comments about the budget and everything?
Yes.
Because I was getting ready to take public comments, but you want to kind
I
of,
just wanted to add two things that I'd like to note on the budget. I'm definitely very happy about the employee education reimbursement. I would like the council to come up with the means of doing that, as to how we would approach that. Because I think it's a great idea. It would definitely benefit Irondale to invest in the employees and encourage them to further their education. But I would like the council to come up with a way to do that. And I would also like the council to come up with a way with the schools, the $150,000, how that will be allocated. I would like the council to have a say in that. Since we are approving this budget, it's something that we should have a say in.
fair enough. I know that y'all don't have a copy of this, out there this evening, so it might be hard for you guys to ask any targeted questions. We will be releasing it, obviously, before it's approved as material for the agenda. That being said, do we have any comments? Fair enough. We have no more comments on the budget as it stands at this time. So if that's the case, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
We have a motion, we have a second? Second, all in favor? Aye.